Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning into today's Author Talk series brought to you by the Library Speakers Consortium. The Library Speakers Consortium is a partnership of more than 300 library systems across the United States, Canada, and New Zealand, with the goal of making Author Talks more accessible to communities of all sizes. I am Brandon Adler, your host and moderator in conversation with each of the wonderful best-selling, prize-winning, and acclaimed authors that you will hear from throughout our Author Talk series year-round. Today, we are ecstatic to welcome New York Times bestselling author Erika L. Sánchez to talk to us about her memoir, Crying in the Bathroom. Welcome, Erika. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm thrilled. Wow, so many people. I'm so grateful. It's so cool.
Well, we are so grateful to have you here. Before we get started, though, I do kind of want to just impart some of that standard housekeeping information that keeps everything running more smoothly. And then we'll learn a lot more about you and dive in. So we have compiled some viewer questions that were pre-submitted with registration, but we will, as always, be taking your additional questions throughout this conversation. So when you have a direct question for Erika, you can click that questions button on the tab below the live stream at any point in time to submit your question. If you're unable to attend this full talk for any reason, you will receive a thank you for attending email in about 24 hours. And in that email, you can find a link to the recording. So now to formally introduce our guest for today. Erika L. Sánchez is the daughter of Mexican immigrants. Her debut poetry collection, Lessons on Expulsion, was published by Grey Wolf in July 2017 and was a finalist for the PEN America Open Book Award. Her debut young adult novel, I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter, published in October 2017 by Knopf Books. I never know if I'm saying that right. For young readers.
Right.
was a New York Times bestseller and a National Book Awards finalist. It is now being made into a film directed by America Ferrera. Most recently, Sánchez published a critically acclaimed memoir in essays titled Crying in the Bathroom with Viking Books, and of course, the book of note for today. Sánchez was a Fulbright Scholar, a 2015 Ruth Lilly and Dorothy Sargent Fellow from the Poetry Foundation, a 2017 to 2019 Princeton Arts Fellow, a 2018 recipient of the 21st Century Award from the Chicago Public Library Foundation, and a 2019 recipient of the National Endowment for the Arts Fellowship. Again, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. I'm thrilled. I love people who love books, so I'm jazzed. I don't know if I've ever said jazzed before in an earnest way, but I just did.
Well, sometimes when we're in on-the-spot situations, we say
Wow.
So I guess let's start with a summary of Crying in the Bathroom, like a very short one, just because I know that some people have watched it. It's gonna be that was foreshadowing. It's gonna be a movie too. But so some people have read the book already, but some people are here because they've read one of your other books and love your work. So can you give us just a quick summary of what your memoir and essays is?
Yeah, so Crying in the Bathroom is a book about, I guess, myself in essay form, but there's a narrative arc. And so the essays range from all sorts of things, such as, sexuality to Buddhism to beauty to poetry. Like I explore many different topics throughout the book. And some people find it funny, and some people think I write too much about my vagina. So, it all depends, right? Like, it's not for everyone, but a lot of people do love it and feel very strongly about it. And so I'm very, very proud of it because it was the book that was the hardest to write and that I needed to write. I mean, I needed to write all of these. But anyway, yeah, I'm not going to be a salesperson here and keep talking about my book, but yeah, that's the gist of it. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that. So you just said that you write about sex and beauty and Buddhism. I found the book to be a lot about the nuance of the adversity of being a woman and controlling your own body.
Yeah.
And not just a woman, a brown woman.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and writing about your vagina you can't really avoid that. It's the first essay. So
Yeah, it's like if you don't like that, don't keep reading, I guess. I don't
I
know.
guess that's a great way to weed out the
Like, are you in for it for real? Like, are you down to clown, as I say in my other essay? I don't know. I think it is important to note that it is about the female body, about being a woman, whatever that means to me, and because it's not just one thing, as we know.
Yeah.
And so what it's like to be like a brown girl who doesn't feel like she has any choices, who feels like she's stagnating in her environment, um, who doesn't feel like she can make choices about her own body, and have sex without shame. And it's just so many layered um, sorts of trauma that I try to untangle somewhat. Obviously, it's impossible to do so, but I make an attempt to make sense in some form in order for me to, like, giving it meaning makes me heal. Writing about not being able to feel safe in my own body, like that helps me as a woman, like, transform that pain into something else. And hopefully this book can help young women, those that have all these questions, and they feel out of, like they don't belong in the place where they are, and who want a different kind of life from the one that they have seen. And so, yeah, it, it does a lot, or at least I attempt to do a lot through the book, because it's so important for young brown women to understand how important it is to have agency, and to have, you know, the also, financial stability. And I think for so long many of us saw women depend on their husbands financially to advance in the world, or to survive even. And so I want to offer them another idea, another possibility, that if you can control your own fertility and your finances, then perhaps you can have a life that feels somewhat free.
Mhm. And you, with that first essay, even you kind of lay the groundwork for helping other women, and kind of just right out of the gate get rid of this, like, this feeling that talking about your body is taboo. And
Mhm.
it's pretty wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah, it turned a lot of people off, but that's fine. They're not my audience. It's
Well,
cool, you know?
it's also why, like, our vaginas are legislated by men, is because we don't talk about them.
Yeah, yeah. It makes people feel weird. So, we shouldn't. And it's all connected. It's all connected to, like you said, the legislation of our bodies, and to the way that we're often victims of femicide. Our bodies and our lives don't really matter
Mhm.
in the grand scheme of things in our society. And so, yeah, there's just a lot to challenge, and a lot to have to digest and live with. It's
Mhm.
it's overwhelming.
So you say victims of femicide, and that makes me think about Martha, and
Oh,
and
mhm.
and that story that you tell, in that first essay. Did you intentionally open open with also these toxic female relationships to kind of set the tone of the book?
I didn't mean to, but that's what surfaced. And that part I kind of glossed over in the first draft. And my editor's like, what just happened here? Like, she just wouldn't let it go. And I didn't want to talk about it because it was a horrible thing, to have your friend um encourage someone to rape you essentially, right? And so I had to like really dig in there and talk about that friendship and why it was so toxic and why I continued to be in it. And I think a lot of young women, they just they don't really see how fucked up things are when they don't have a lot of perspective. Like I didn't understand that that was horrible what she did to me. I knew it was bad and it felt weird, but I didn't really start to understand what that was until I was much older and I had more wisdom. And I was like, oh shit, that was horrific. Like, why did she do that? And she must have really hated my guts. And this whole time I thought we were friends. And anyway, it just, there, I think misogyny is important to remember that it's not only manifested in men, it's manifested in women as well. Like we're all victims of this brainwashing, this patriarchy. And so there are times in which the villain is a woman, and I think it's important to write about that sort of thing. And you could be a feminist and still hold women accountable as well, and so I felt like, yeah, that was a really tough thing to write about, but it felt important because I know I'm not the only one who's had a friend that like that,
Yeah, people might still be friends with people like that because they haven't quite recognized what it is. You're right.
Yeah, someone actually asked the question in my podcast. They asked, like, what do I do when I have a friend like Martha? And I was like, you gotta run. You just gotta run. Don't look back.
Or Selena's killer. Is that what?
Yeah. Oh, I believe she said Selena's killer, actually. Yeah. Because what a perfect description for a person.
Yeah. Well, can't tell that I'm a fan of the podcast or anything. I'm like, I heard you read that question. You mean Selena's killer?
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Loyalty.
And if you haven't listened to the podcast yet, no chingues. It's hilarious and very important. So
it's really fun to record. I will just say it doesn't take much effort from us because we do this normally, but we just don't. We finally sat down and recorded it.
It just sounds like you all are hanging out and like having a couple of drinks and just talking about life and culture, like things that friends talk about.
That's exactly what it is, and I look forward to it every 2 weeks.
I look forward to seeing a new episode. Thank you for that. I'm sure I'll probably ask you more questions about that later. So Jade is asking, did you collect these essays over time or did you write them specifically for this memoir?
I had never written an essay before in this way. Honestly, I don't remember, maybe in college, but someone asked me to submit an essay for an anthology about women and ambition. And so I was like, well, I guess I can do that. And I wrote one and I turned it in. I thought it was great. And they're like, no, this is really about your mother. And I was like, fuck, again, like, I don't want to go there, but fine, I'll go there. And so I rewrote it and I felt really good about it. And it turned out to be Crying in the Bathroom, the title essay. And so there was something about telling the literal truth and making sense of my life that felt liberating. And I wanted to keep doing that. And I had just learned that my poetry and my young adult novel were going to be published. And so I needed another project. I didn't know what was going to come next. And I always need a project because that's just how I keep going. I need something to work on. And so this became that project. And I started writing essays in different order. Like I don't quite remember when I wrote what. Obviously the last essay I wrote last because it was it chronicles my my life as a mother. And so the other ones, honestly, I don't remember. I just all of a sudden I would have like this urge, like I have to write about this, and then I would obsessively write about that. And I held on to this for a long time without showing it to anyone. And then my agent wanted to get moving on this, and I was like, it's not done. And I had to like really meditate on it. I had to write some more. I had to revise. I'm like such an obsessive reviser that it I could just do it until the end of time, honestly. And so I have to like find a place that feels right to stop.
Mhm. To I guess to that point, like, no, it's not ready. Jamie's asking which of your essays do you feel that you poured the most of yourself into, and what were you feeling as you wrote them?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I just poured different parts of myself in different ones, and it's hard to say which ones were the most intense was Difficult Son, and that was because I experienced like the worst depression of my existence, and it was really hard to write about, and I really had to go back to that place and feel that again. And um even now if I read it upsets me. And then the most joyful essay would have to be the last one where I write about becoming a mother, and like what and meeting my husband, and how I survived um such a you know such a terrible bout of depression, and was able to keep moving forward. um yeah, it was so tough to write. um Difficult Son was the one, however, that really hit me, and I remember crying while writing it and revising it and reading it, and I just like always I start to tear up because I almost can't believe that I went through that.
Yeah. Well, Jeanette just left a comment. They say, I have cried in the bathroom many times. I want to thank the author for sharing her story. I feel her story is so genuine, and talking about her experience in mental health made me appreciate her more and respect her more as everything she's gone through as a woman. You are a chingona.
Yes, thank you.
This is a very inspirational
Mhm.
story, to fight for yourself. I guess so. With that, Difficult Son being the most difficult chapter to write because it was kind of the most difficult chapter of your life.
Mhm.
You write about getting an abortion while also being suicidal.
Yeah.
I mean, you must have felt so unsafe and scared at that time. I couldn't even imagine having it.
Yeah. It was
And
just unlike anything I had ever experienced. Like,
yeah,
I felt so alone and confused, and I felt like maybe I don't belong here on this earth, and um it was so scary. I just like I was so close to death because I just didn't know how I would ever get better. And I wasn't myself, and I felt I couldn't feel joy. I couldn't feel the things that I normally felt. And so um it was really hard to convince myself that I could get better,
mhm,
you know. And I think a lot of people go through those moments, and it's really terrifying because some people don't get to the other side of it. They're consumed by it, and I think when you're confronted with something like that, it just your whole sense of self has shattered. You're just I feel like I broke apart and started over in a way, because I could never go back to being the same person. Like, that was it.
mhm.
There's this sort of Buddhist mentality of shattering and then putting it back together, and that's more beautiful than what was before. And so yeah, it was a lot. It was just so much.
Well, around that same time, I think you wrote that you had thought that you just had a boring kind of depression, but in fact, you were diagnosed with bipolar disorder, which you then called the fun kind of depression.
Well, you know what I mean.
I mean, yeah, definitely adds a little more characteristic to it, I suppose. So I guess being depressed your entire life, and kind of just learning to deal with it, as many do, how has the actual diagnosis kind of changed how you view your past, current, and future self?
Oh man, that's a great question. It's really changed so much because growing up, I would have these horrific mood swings, just like all of a sudden from one end to the other. And I never understood what that was. And I knew that something was not right. And I knew that it was really hard to control my emotions and that a lot of the time I was being irrational. But yet I felt that way, and I didn't know what that was. And now I know what that was. And now I understand that part of it also helps fuel my writing. The looking back, I'm like, I think I wrote Mexican Daughter, the majority of Mexican Daughter when I was probably manic. If I really come to think of it and like really analyze the process of writing, I was obsessed. I was just overtaken and I had to keep going. And now it makes me feel like I can see why I made certain choices and why my life was so challenging, and why I had these extreme mood shifts. Like, it was such a terrible feeling. Sometimes I would start to plummet and I could pinpoint that I was plummeting. I felt it. I was like, oh no, oh no, but I didn't know what that was. I was like, oh God, I'm just built weird, like something's not right. And now I know that it's chemical and I can treat it and I have treated it and I can function way better than before because I have resources and I can see doctors and things like that. But yeah, yeah, it just all of a sudden things started to come together.
You, Charles is asking, do you feel that your depression in a way has been a gift in regards for it being kind of a well for wisdom?
Oh fuck. I don't know. I don't want to think that. The- Here's what I'll say. I wouldn't call it a gift, but I've learned, and this is another Buddhist concept, turning poison into medicine.
Mhm.
So it was my karma to have this mental illness, and it was my karma to transform it into something. And so I wouldn't label it in those terms as like a blessing in disguise or anything like that. It's just that was what I was dealt, and then I had to figure out a way to live with that.
Mhm.
Um, I, yeah, that's the best I can do.
So you do, kind of give this beautiful detailing about your, about becoming Buddhist in the La Malavida essay. Are you still a practicing Buddhist?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I have shifted a little in my focus, and I've been reading a lot of Thich Nhat Hanh, and learning about Zen Buddhism, which has been so helpful. Um, I find that it really anchors me. It makes me a better person. It makes me more thoughtful. I I can like regulate my feelings a lot better. I can you know be more connected to people because I feel like very content with who I am, and I feel like at peace with myself, and because of that I can form relationships that are much more profound than the ones I had before, you know. And so I practice, and I do sitting meditation, I do walking meditation, I take very long walks sometimes, or I go to the park and I listen to a Buddhist talk or something like that, and it just really energizes me. And I never felt that at a Catholic church, so I don't know.
You cried. You were inconsolable.
Right, I didn't want to be there. It's so different. Obviously, like no one's telling me what to do. I just am using my own wisdom. I'm cultivating an inner world to help me guide myself through life, you know. And so it's so different than being just dictated to and ordered around. That was not for me.
You also kind of spoke about your first visit to that temple in that same essay, and being freaked out by people who seemed happy all the time. But kind of near the end of your book, you admit to having kind of shifted that mantra from what you say is "it's okay not to suffer" to "it's okay to be happy." So is this you starting to become the happy people that you used to be freaked out by?
Yeah, I'm creeping myself out. Honestly, it's very strange. I mean, I was used to strife, just nonstop strife, like in so many different ways, like my mental illness. And then I felt at odds with my family. I felt poor. I felt like I didn't belong anywhere. It was just like so many layers of shit. And I had to really just scrape that back and really get to the core of who I really was. And and Buddhism has given me this like really beautiful clarity. I'm able to see things more accurately than before. Before I was like overtaken with emotion, and now I'm able to manage how I feel a lot better, and see things for what they are, and acknowledge how we're all interrelated, how we can cultivate joy every day, that we can see beauty every day, no matter the circumstances. And also my daughter's really freaking cool, and I love being her mother, and she delights me all the time. And I spend a lot of time with her just mindfully, because I've learned about how to be mindful. And it's amazing to really be with someone, be present, and offer your entire self to that person in that moment. It's really, I don't know, it's pretty extraordinary, I suppose.
I can agree with that.
Yeah.
So in one of your essays, you talk about your mother hearing you cry in utero. And I heard an interview with you where you say that you heard your daughter also cry in utero.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And also, no wonder she's pushing kids around on the playground, pushing boys around on the playground. You just heard your mother.
Yeah, she's got a really strong energy, that's for sure. And you know, I wasn't even surprised by it. I was like, huh, she's crying. And then she kind of like croaked as well. And then she ended up making that noise when she was born. It was just like this weird croak. And so I found it to be kind of funny and interesting. And I just went right back to sleep. And then, the more I thought about it, I was like, oh, that's so cool that I heard her. And that it's like generational, Um, yeah, she came out actually she wasn't crying. She didn't respond vocally at all. She just kind of looked around and tried to That's the situation. And she had like a weird smirk on her face, and she's always been like that. She's very funny, very alive, very observant, and very, very loving. So it's just fun to see her grow up.
It's amazing. B is asking, did you ever feel like any family members wouldn't approve of what you were writing about? Francis is expanding. How was your relationship with your parents? Were they in denial or upset with your honesty?
I didn't really think about it too much. I felt that I had to write this book, and they were gonna have to accept it somehow. And they have, and everyone's proud of me. There's no, you know, conflict with my family about my writing whatsoever. Um, my mom felt like she didn't want to know all, like, everything that I was writing about. There's so much that I have not shared because it's, a strange thing to share with your mother. And she felt like it was better for both of us if she just didn't read it. And I was like, beautiful, that's great, don't. And then my dad, I don't even think he thought to read it, so it doesn't matter. And my brothers are very proud of me, and I'm never really afraid to disappoint or upset them because they know me, and
Yeah.
they're just like really open and understanding, and it's really not an issue.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
And then the extended family, I don't really care, like whatever.
So Krishana, or Krisana, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, is asking, in what ways did writing this memoir feel similar and different from writing previous works? Pam asked that as well. We've had quite a few people ask that. Yeah, let's go with that.
It goes back to writing the literal truth. And so, with poetry, I can write in a way that is metaphorical and flowery and weird and nonsensical. And like, that's just what you're allowed to do, right? And then in fiction, there's a character. And the nonfiction, it's a character, but that character is you. And so there was a lot of like, just confronting myself and understanding myself, and reframing a lot of things. And so for me, it was really therapeutic, but every book is in a different way, and I don't really know how to describe that.
Yeah.
But I think for this last one, just being so honest and in a literal way was, I don't know, it was illuminating to me.
Mm-hmm. So in a lot of Crying in the Bathroom, you talk about your role model. You write repeatedly about your role model, Lisa Simpson. So why Lisa Simpson?
So growing up, I loved The Simpsons, and I really started to feel a connection to Lisa as I grew older, because I saw a lot of the same traits in myself of, speaking up when something isn't right, and, complaining about the environment, just like really being annoying about a lot of different issues that were very important to me. And Lisa was just the first feminist icon that I could remember seeing. I mean, I grew up with Telemundo and Univision, and just women just half naked, shaking their stuff, which, you know, whatever, that's cool, I guess. But, you know, for a little girl, that doesn't really give you something to look up to. I didn't want to be like that. And so Lisa Simpson was so assertive, and she knew herself and she knew what was right, and she stood up for it. And even if she pissed everyone off, which she often did, um, you know, she had integrity, and she just loved to learn. She was a girl who loved books, who loved just any sort of knowledge that she could get her hands on. It was so cool to see that, and I just didn't see that anywhere else.
Yeah, Lisa Simpson does rock. She's awesome. Do you
Yeah.
recognize yourself as the role model that you are now?
You know, people ask me that, and it kind of freaks me out. I mean, that's nice, but let's remember that I make a lot of mistakes.
Is being a role model in and of itself, is giving permission to make mistakes.
Okay, okay, all right. I like the way that you have framed it. It's cool. I take it very seriously, and I really care about like the message that I give to young women, and because I I was a young woman in desperate need of guidance, you know, and I didn't really get a lot of it. And now for me to be the person who offers some wisdom, then wow, that's quite a shift. And I I care a lot about it, and it matters a lot to me that people support me, you know, and people love my work. And I was just thinking about that. I was meditating, and I was just thinking about like, have I ever really received the love that people have for my work? I don't think, sometimes I just like, I don't even want to think about it. But it's
It's a big
actually,
responsibility.
I'm sorry.
I said it probably feels like a big responsibility.
It does, but also I'm grateful, you know, and it keeps me going, and um, it makes me feel like all the strife was worth it if I could, you know, influence someone's life in some positive way. Then wow,
Yeah,
that's amazing.
that is amazing. And I know that you have, by some of the comments and reactions that we've
Aw.
talked. Caitlin and Jen are both asking, was there any feedback that you received that was really surprising, or what are some reactions that you've received from other people about the memoir?
Well, the most surprising thing, as I mentioned, was, you know, people thought I wrote too much about my pussy, and it's like, well, then don't read it. You know, like this is not for you. And I think it also says a lot about how we view women's bodies, and how we're not encouraged to be in charge of our own bodies. We're not encouraged to talk about the things that happen to our bodies as women. And so I just really reject that. And so if someone has a problem with that, then they have a problem with me. And that's fine. You know, it's not for everybody. But the fact that it upsets people, I think that's very telling.
Yeah.
Or that I'm too vulgar, I swear too much, whatever. That's another thing I've heard. Obviously, I don't care. So, um, you know, I speak the way I write, and I just refuse in nonfiction, writing an essay in my voice, to sanitize that. I just won't do it. So,
Good.
yeah.
Alma, we're kind of transitioning a bit to some questions about I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter. So knowing that this is a nonfiction memoir, but then also your fictional YA novel, I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter, Alyssa is wondering how much of that was built on your own experiences growing up. And Alma expanded as an imperfect Mexican daughter she's very grateful for your writing. You put words that I struggle to understand. You put into words what I struggle to understand. So they both want to know what motivated you to write such personal moments.
Thank you. You know, writing Mexican Daughter was sort of an emergency, as I mentioned. Like it was a frenzy of writing, and
Yeah.
I felt like it was something that like was coursing through me, and I had to get it out. And I I feel like, and I don't know. What I was aiming to do was for me to write a story in which, not everything was literally true, but it was like drawing upon my experiences, drawing upon the experiences of other people that I've met, that I've heard, stories that I've read, like the books that I've read until that point highly influenced what I wrote. And I I feel like a lot of it is not a lot. There are things that are literally true about the character and me. That I was an imperfect Mexican daughter, that I was troubled, that I skipped school and things like that. But the story, the plot, that's something that as an artist I had to construct.
Mhm.
And it wasn't my story. It was a story that was an amalgam of many different things. And so uh, Julia Reyes is me, but she isn't me. It's that sort of idea of how do you untangle these two beings? I don't know. Like it's hard for me to explain like what's true and what's not. And
Yeah.
it doesn't matter, like I don't have a sister that died. I have two brothers, that's something that I completely imagined because I needed that as a vehicle in the story so I could tell the story.
Mhm. So even though it's a YA novel, Maria is writing, I'm a community representative at a local public school, and I read I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter with a group of moms in Spanish. And it was amazing to see these ladies, all moms in their 40s and 50s, heal parts of themselves with this book.
Oh
Do
my
you
God.
write with moms in mind at all? Is there something you'd like parents to take away from your books?
I love to hear that moms read the book. It's so amazing that moms, they just really want to connect with their kids. They want to understand their kids. It's not because they don't want to, they don't know how. And so if the book can serve as a bridge between them and their children, then oh my God, that's so beautiful. I think that's amazing. And I wasn't really thinking with the moms in mind as the audience, but the fact that that's what has happened is just very moving to me. But I will say, as a teaser, I am working on my next project, and it's for the moms. It's for the moms.
Yay.
So I'm interviewing moms. I'm really trying to understand that experience
Mhm.
of the immigrant mother, and it's really heavy. It's so heavy, but I think it's really important. And I think immigrant women bring so much to our society and our culture, and they're so often disregarded. They're invisible most of the time, and I just I really want to celebrate them, and also look at all the complexities and nuances of what it means to be uh, a woman freshly arrived without documentation, with no choices. Like, what
Mhm.
is that? And it sometimes it's unflattering. Sometimes it's illuminating, and I want to get all of that complexity within the story. But I'm not I'm not that far along yet. So these are just ideas. I've done a lot. I've written some things on my wall here and here, um, to help me put it together, but it's a huge project for me. It's kind of hard to like wrap my mind around it.
Are you uh, probably too early in the process? But the first question that popped to my mind is: Are you traveling to interview immigrant women across the country, or are you sticking in Chicago? I mean, I know that there are a lot of immigrant mothers sleeping in police stations in
Oh
Chicago.
my God, it's horrible over here. It is really bad. Um, no, but no, I'm not traveling right now. I do want to travel to Mexico at some point, but right now I'm just interviewing women in Chicago, and um, yeah, it's a really terrible situation that people are in right now.
Mhm.
It's hard to know what to do, you know. And so I've done what I can, but I always think about them.
Yeah. Well, you're going to shine light on it, so that's good. You're doing what you can.
Thank you.
So now that it's been, what, 6 years now since you wrote "I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter," since it was published, um, how do you think of yourself and the audience that you write for in the landscape of literature now? Do you think that publishing has expanded and started to embrace more diversity, or do you think that it's still kind of stagnant?
I mean, it's changing, but it's not changing fast enough for me. And I would love to see more authors of color being celebrated. Um, but it's very different. The landscape is different because I remember when I was first starting out, or trying to get an agent, even people were not really open to this kind of idea.
Mhm.
And now this book has become so popular, and it's going to be a movie and all of these things, and so it kind of makes me chuckle to remember all the different rejections that I received back then. And I'm hoping that because the book has done so well, it has helped other writers of color kind of break through into the publishing world. um yeah, it's still hella white out there, but some of us are now, included, and we need to kick all the doors open and let everyone in. And that's how I see it. Um,
I agree. Add,
yeah,
add some color. Add some color to the universe.
yeah, for real. We need it. Oh my God.
Cecilia, speaking of a movie, Cecilia is asking, how do you feel about your book being adapted into a film? Um, and then, do you have any book recommendations that are similar to "I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter"?
Okay, well, I'll start with the book recommendations. Anything that Elizabeth Acevedo writes is going to be fantastic. The Poet X. The other one, I forgot the others. She has two more. And then she has an adult novel coming out. She's just great. And for brown girls with um, sharp corners and tender hearts, by Prisca Dorcas Rodriguez. Um, she writes essays about being brown, and um, they're beautiful, and they're personal, but they're also academic in a way, but accessible. It's a great collection. And I also have book recommendations on my website. There's a tab, there's a page in which I recommend things. So check that out because there's so many others that I'm not mentioning, and that I often forget about when put on the spot. So
That's usually our last question, so we're not done yet. We're
okay.
so yeah, I guess the other part of her question was, how do you feel about your book being
Oh,
adapted
right.
to a film?
I feel really excited, and there's been a delay. Last year we were supposed to go into production, then Netflix pulled out, and now we have someone else, another studio, and it's going forward. But it's just the strike, and
I was going to say everybody's on strike.
who the hell knows? I'm just trying to be patient and not overthink it. But I I feel like it's in really good hands. I think America Ferrera is a true artist. I trust her with my work, and I feel that we can work really great together on the movie. And I just really want a lot of young women to feel like finally someone like them is on a screen, on the big screen. And so yeah, it hasn't really gelled in my head that this is happening. I think once I start seeing equipment and, people on set and stuff, then I'll be like, oh yeah, this is crazy. But right now, it still feels abstract.
It's got to be surreal.
Yeah, it is.
So, Kathy is asking, now that you are a mother, one, how would you rate your tortilla making skills? And two, would you consider writing a follow-up book entitled Yo no soy tu perfecta madre mexicana? I am not your perfect Mexican mother.
Yeah, well, I wrote I'm Not Your Perfect Mexican Mother, the essay that is in Crying in the Bathroom. So I will not be writing any follow-ups.
Follow-up book on that.
Nah, I'm done with Mexican Daughter in that way, where I just like I can't make something else out of it. It's just it is its own thing. And now that I'm a mother, what was that?
Tortilla making skills.
Oh God, who makes tortillas? I mean, I don't even know anyone who makes tortillas like on a daily basis or even on a weekly basis. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, and they just never taste good when I do it.
I mean, I can make them, but it would just take up so much time. I don't feel like it. And Milagro tortillas here in Chicago are great.
Yes, they are.
Oh, you know them?
Yeah, I did my undergrad in Chicago, so I spent quite a few years eating lots of Mexican food and buying Milagro tortillas.
We have great Mexican food, and those tortillas are good enough for me. So
I agree.
Sorry, baby, store-bought only,
That's perfectly fine. Deb is asking, laughing is essential in this life. Is it a natural gift or do you have to work at it?
I think sometimes you have to work at it because, I mean, you always have to work at something. Let me rephrase that. It's intentional. For me, laughter was something that was really important. And so I made sure to feed that. And I was just thinking about this today when I was taking a walk about like feed or planting these seeds and watering the seeds of certain things, like watering the seeds of joy, of laughter, of peace. If you don't tend to that, then it's not going to grow. Mm-hmm. And so I think, I don't know. Some people are not funny. Some people just don't have that in them. I don't know. Maybe that could be worked on, but also part of it, it seems like innate. Like you see how things can be funny, and absurd, and you don't take life too seriously because life is absurd. And so I don't know. I don't know that I answered that well.
Well, you write about in one of your essays about laughing at your own jokes, and I think that that's amazing because I often laugh at my own jokes, and my husband looks at me like I'm nuts.
My husband does it too, so he doesn't think it's nuts.
So I think that being able to, I guess, in my opinion, being able to laugh at your own jokes and find humor in even the worst of times is a natural gift.
Yeah, and it's a gift you give to yourself, right? Because if you can laugh at things, like something embarrassing that happens to you, something even painful that happens to you, if you could somehow find the humor in it, then it just becomes so much more bearable, and life is just better.
It makes me think of your podcast, Malchingues, because you guys talk about really deep cultural things, and it's such it's such an important cultural perspective, and you get really deep. I haven't listened to the most recent one yet,
It's her best yet.
but then you just start like all cracking up. You find a way to like kind of take away this horrible thing that you're talking about, and then like after about 3 or 4 minutes of just nonstop laughing and like making fun of poor Harry for going to Beanie Baby conferences. You bring it back and talk about, what could be done about this potentially, or where does the problem lie? So
Yeah.
it
I
is
mean, life is messy and there's so much to it. And sometimes you gotta go low and come back out. And, like it's, I don't know. I'm not really explaining it very well, but
okay.
just being a person is crazy. It's absurd. If you really think about it, like what the hell are we doing here? And so I find the need to laugh at things because I don't want to take myself too seriously. I don't want to take everything too seriously. I want to have a good time, honestly. Like when we record No Chingas, we want to hang out. We want to have a good time. It's kind of something we look forward to every 2 weeks, and humor is the way that we relate to each other, and also it takes the power from certain things. Like if you really think about what racism is and what white supremacy is, it's quite funny that someone would think that they're superior because they're white. It's just like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And so
it's ridiculous.
it is, and why not kind of revel in how stupid, yeah. Yeah, I guess I never really thought about that.
Whether or not it was a natural gift.
No, yeah, like I think you have to cultivate it, but also have it in you, both.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the answer to the question.
Yeah.
So Erica is saying, your memoir has been one of my favorite books I've read this year. So much so that I've been re-inspired to write short stories about the women in my Mexican family. I struggle to make time to write anything these days with a 9 to 5 job. What tips do you have to make time to write anything creative?
I think it's important to think of writing not so much as pen on paper or typing something, but writing as a way of living, as a way of seeing, as something that you embody. And so when I was working these really terrible 9 to 5 jobs, I was still always thinking about writing. I was writing notes to myself. I was reading a lot. And I know that's difficult with the demands that we have in life, but I think if this is your vocation, then you're gonna figure out a way to do it, whether it's writing during the weekends, on your lunch break, before work, after work, whatever. You're going to carve out a space to do it because it matters to you, and it's not always fun. I mean, God, I used to get in trouble for writing at work. I would write things to myself and read documents like PDFs on my computer. I just I needed literature during the day, and like I would pretend to work and read a short story or whatever.
It's a horrible job where you had to like track all of your time.
That was another one. And so, yeah, if you love it, you have to commit to it and think of it as not so much like literally writing, but making a space for it in your mind and in your life.
Mm-hmm. And Esther wants to know, since being a mother, how have your writing routines changed since becoming a mother?
My routine is all over the place. I don't have a routine. I'm like, one day I'll write, one day I won't. I'll read a bunch of stuff. Another day I'll make art. And this is like a huge privilege, and I acknowledge that. Just like different creative endeavors throughout, and kind of following my obsessions and like just in indulging in books, because without doing that, I don't feel inspired. I need inspiration. And so I also watch documentaries. I take walks, and on my walks, I'm always thinking about my writing, trying to put things together. And I have a little notebook in my pocket. Yeah, it looks very messy. It's kind of like putting a collage together, but that's what it is for me. I don't think Stephen King does it like that, but you know, it's working for me, and that's cool.
Yeah, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Giving us your brilliant creativity. Okay, well, we are just past the top of the hour. So thank you, Erika. Thank you. It's truly
Thank
been a
you.
pleasure talking to you for the last hour. Thank you for your important work.
Appreciate it.
I also want to extend a huge thank you to all of our viewers for tuning in to our author talk today with Erika. Without your support, of course, none of this would be possible. So we thank you for choosing to spend your time with us. As a reminder, below the live stream video where you can find those 3 different tabs, you can find a link to Erika's book in the resources tab. We look forward to seeing you all on August 15th when we chat with New York Times bestselling author Robert Jones Jr. about his book, The Prophets. And again on August 23rd when we talk to New York Times bestselling YA author Cassandra Clare about her body of work. You can register for these and lots of other great events on your library's event page. I am Brandon Adler. Thank you for joining us. Have a good day.